As we film this video, there is a breaking news story that is still developing involving two women who have come forward alleging sexual assault that was done on them by Donald Trump. Now, there have been multiple stories coming out with various women claiming that Donald Trump had sexually assaulted them. The latest include a 74-year-old woman by the name of Jessica Leeds. She alleges that years ago she was on a flight with Donald Trump in first class, and that he just started groping her while she was seated next to him. She alleges that she got up and she freaked out and went to the back of the plane and sat there for the remainder of the flight. She also told the story to at least 4 people, and the New York Times, which is reporting this story, did go to speak with them so they could corroborate these claims. Also, the second woman is Rachel Crooks. She claims that she was working at a real estate office at Trump Tower when he walked into the office one day. He then proceeded to shake her hand, wouldn't let her go, and then kissed her directly on the mouth. So those were the allegations against him. Again, more of these stories are coming out, and the women are saying, hey, you know, we just kind of kept these stories to ourselves until he went on that town hall and started talking about how, it's just locker room banter. I never act on it, right? And they're like, he acts on it. This is the way he really treats women behind the scenes.
So Rachel Crooks was 22 years old when Trump apparently did this. Jessica Leeds, as Anna pointed out, is 74, but what she says happened more than 3 decades ago.
Yeah.
So she was a much younger woman at the time, and Donald Trump was much younger at the time. Now, although he was still, now it would be, even so, well into his 30s at that point when he did that. So, look, you can say, hey, 3 decades ago, why are you bringing it up? Well, because
it's relevant.
A, he's running for president. B, here he is on tape talking about how he just gropes women and he just kisses them. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing if he's joking and then you buy into that, hey, it's just locker room talk, but he doesn't really do that. He's just being an idiot with Billy Bush and they're high-fiving and being stupid guys. It's another thing entirely if he actually does do it and if he has a pattern of doing it. Mm-hmm. So there were already a great number of cases we knew where he had done it. So according to allegations, and Jill Harth was a person that he was doing a business deal with. He started moving his hand up her thigh in the middle of discussions, and then he was showing her around the estate, got her in Ivanka Trump's room. This is all in court papers that she alleged, and he settled later, okay? And she says that he attacked her and started groping her and trying to kiss her in what she called an attempted rape. So we know, and again, divorce papers, it's not us saying it, it's in court filings. His former wife, Ivana Trump, said he once raped her. And he was mad about a hair transplant, and he tried to rip her hair out, and he violated her, and she called it rape at the time.
Right.
Okay? And so then the stories came out about Miss Utah, Temple Taggart, saying he just, out of nowhere, just kissed me. Aaron Burnett told a story about her friend. He puts the Tic Tacs in his mouth, just like he said in the tapes on the bus. And he even offered her Tic Tacs, and then boom, out of nowhere, starts to kiss her. And by the way, his good friend Roger Ailes, a very similar fact pattern, who now works on his campaign, used to run Fox News.
Who's advising him?
He's advising him, and Roger Ailes was written out of even Fox News because what would he do? He would just, boom, kiss women without their consent. He would touch them without their consent. He would tell them he was going to fire them if they didn't sleep with him. Then Nancy O'Dell's story when she was co-hosting Miss Universe. Donald Trump tried to sleep with Nancy O'Dell, and that was the conversation they were talking about on the bus, in the tapes. He says, oh, Nancy, I know she was married, but I tried to have sex with her. I bought her furniture. Oh, what a cheesy guy this guy is, right?
Yeah.
And then later, he tries to get her fired 2 years later. Was it because she was pregnant, or was it because she didn't sleep with him? So this is a fact pattern with Trump. Now, 2 more stories come out. That's the stories that Anna's referring to. At this point, if you can't see a pattern, you're trying not to see it.
Yeah, and I also find it really interesting that Donald Trump's line of attack toward Hillary Clinton is to attack the behavior of Bill Clinton, right? First of all, there's a lot of things to criticize Hillary Clinton for, but attacking her for the behavior of her husband is not the right way to go, especially when your behavior is just as bad, if not much worse, actually. What do you mean just as bad? than what Bill Clinton has been accused of, right? I mean, think about that for a second. He gathered these women who had accusations against Bill Clinton into a room before debating Hillary Clinton just to slander her, to slander Bill Clinton, just to make it seem as though these are like the worst people on the planet. And oh my God, look at how they mistreat women and how terrible they are. That's a really questionable line of attack when you have skeletons in your closet, when you're living in a gigantic glass house. So it's just amazing to me. And by the way, for all the Republicans out there, all the conservatives out there who continuously make these arguments about the LGBT community and how, they're immoral, or how the trans community will rape your mothers and daughters in bathrooms if they use the bathrooms that they identify with. You don't care about rape. You don't care about sexual assault, because if you really did, you would speak out against this. You wouldn't speak out against it for political gain. You would speak out against it because it's what you genuinely believe. But we have various examples, including, that Nebraska Senator, Deb Fischer. Yeah, Deb Fischer. You're a woman, okay? You come out and you denounce what Donald Trump says, and then you go around and say, oh, no, but I'm going to vote for him because you're worried about your political career. You're an embarrassment to women.
Okay, and the women that Donald Trump paraded out there, Bill Clinton's accusers largely, he had, of course, earlier called ugly, terrible people, and including Paula Jones, who was right there with him.
Yeah, I know.
And he had said that they had victimized Bill Clinton. Because back then he thought, I'm doing the same things Clinton is and worse. I wouldn't want that. Now he's running as Hillary Clinton. He's like, look at what Bill Clinton did. What a giant hypocrite. And by the way, if I was Hillary Clinton, I would say in the middle of a debate, hey, Donald, you keep saying these things against Bill Clinton. I know you have a trouble respecting women, but Bill Clinton's not running for president. I am.
Exactly. She needs to be way more aggressive, and she needs to be unapologetic for who she is, right? You call his supporters deplorable, that's exactly what they are. Don't backtrack.
You get hours of extra content if you're a Young Turks member. TYTnetwork.com/join.
Go ahead, girl.